So our sign up page is also set up, right? But one thing I've noticed here is, you might have noticed as well, is that our button name is still login. Right? So but we are in a sign up page. We don't want a login button. We want a sign up with a we want a button with the name of sign up, right? Because this login button is okay when you're in the login page, but when we are in the sign up page, we don't want this login button. We want the sign up button, right? And the reason why it's showing us the login button is because we have created the auth form component, and we are using it in on the both like sign up and login sections, a sign up and login page. And the auth form basically we have hard coded the input field to a value of login, right? And that is the reason why like the login is being shown on both the login button is being shown on both the like login page and the sign up page. So now what we have to do is we have to like dynamically change the value of this button depending on whether we are on the sign up page or whether we are on the login page, right? So what we can do is we can again add a prop, okay, from this login page and also from the sign up page. We can add a prop to this auth form telling that which page we are in, and depending on that prop we can show the button name. So here what I'm going to add is I'm going to add a prop of button or like button name, and I'm going to set it to login. Okay, login. Let's just save that. And in our sign up page, I'm going to add a prop in our auth form with the button name of sign up. Okay, let's just save that. And in our auth form, what we can do is we can get the prop value by destructuring it, and we can just like name the value, this button name over here. So let's just say button name. Now let's just use this button name prop in our value field right here. So instead of login, we are going to add our curly brace because it's a value, and in order to render a value inside the JSX we have to use the curly brace. We're going to say button name, and if you save this, let's just save this. Now you're going to see a sign up button on the sign up page, and if you go to the login, you're going to see a login button in the login page. Now I think we can start with our authentication. So for authentication, I'm going to use Firebase. It's kind of like a service that provides us with a lot of facilities, including authentication, database, and like many more. So yeah, we can use Firebase in order to authenticate the users. Let's just say we already have our backend set up by Firebase, and we just have to like do a few configurations, and we just have to like use a few Firebase functions in order to make our authentication flow work. So let me go to Firebase, right? And let's just go to this firebase.google.com. So if you click over here, okay, so if you're not signed in to Google, you'll probably have a sign up or a sign in like button over here. So do go there first and then like sign up to Google. And after that happens, you'll kind of get like this go to console button, and like you can click there in order to go to our Firebase console. And here what we have to do is we have to go to add project, because we have to create our Firebase project as well, and we need to connect that project with our front end application, and then we can like kind of use Firebase in like, then we can like communicate with Firebase in order to create our authentication flow and also like save our data as well. So let's go and create our project, Firebase project. So let's just click here, and it asks us for a project name. So let me just see. I think it was bookworm. So bookworm, I think this should be a good project name because that's the name of our project, right? So let's continue. And here it asks us if you want a Google Analytics for our Firebase project. Currently we don't want it because we just want to like make it work. So let me just uncheck this, and let's create project. Okay, so the project is now ready, and let's just click on this continue. And now we And now we come to this page, and that says let's get started by building a Firebase app. So let's create our Firebase app, right? It says like if you want it for iOS, Android, or web. Now since we are using our project, since we are using a web project, we are going to create an app for our web. Okay, and this web app, let's add a name of this web app. So let's just say bookworm, right? And let's just register our app. And now you can see that you'll get some information that actually tells you how you can initialize Firebase in your application. And from here, what we need to really focus on is like this code right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this code, and let's just continue to console. And there you go, guys. We have just created our Firebase app. Now what we're going to do is we are going to connect our the React application with this Firebase app. And if you kind of like open this build tab, you can see that there are a lot of functionalities and a lot of things that Firebase provides. And as you can see on the top, you get authentication. You get authentication as well. It has the app check, Firestore database, real-time database, and like all these stuffs. But what we need to focus on currently is the authentication here. But before like going on to this, let's just initialize our so before going to this, let's just initialize this Firebase app in our project. Okay, so just now we copied the Firebase initialization code, right? If you somehow like forgot to copy it, don't worry, I think we will get it. You can go to project settings, right? Then you can get this code right here. Okay, but from this code, like the most important thing that you need is basically this Firebase config object. Okay, and this is kind of like the main config object that you need in order to connect your application with your React application. And with the and this initialize app is basically our function that's going to gonna do the connection, and this piece of data is basically required in order to create the connection. So let's just copy this code right here, and let's just go to our VS Code. Let me make it a little bit big. Yeah, I think this should do. Let me bring this down here, and yeah, I think we should create a Firebase folder. So let's just go back, and inside our source folder, let's create a new folder with the name of Firebase, right? And inside this Firebase, let's just add a new file that says firebase.js. And here let's just paste whatever code we had like copied. If you paste this up, and let's just remove this comment sections. I'm going to keep these 3 ones. Okay, let's just save that. All right, so let me explain the code once again. So we are importing this initialize app function, and it basically comes from the Firebase/app. Now currently our project does not know what this Firebase is. So what we need to do now is we need to install the Firebase package. It has also been like informed right here to npm install Firebase. So let's just install it now. So right here, let me just say npm. Remember, I just created a new like a terminal. From here, like the old terminal is running our like server, but from the new terminal we can like install the Firebase. So npm install Firebase. Okay, let's just hit enter. Okay, now that the Firebase is installed, let me bring this down, and let's just go to our node modules and see if Firebase exists here or not. So if you go down, I think you'll be able to see this. Yeah, there you go. You have this Firebase here. So now our application will know like where this initialize app exists, and this function will be able to work. Okay, so do npm install Firebase, otherwise you won't be able to do this. And we do need to export this app as well. So let's just export default. No, yeah, export, we can do default export. So export default app. Okay, let's just save this. And now let me go to our sign up page first, because first we need to create the user. So first let's just create our sign up functionality, and I think we need to go inside the auth form. So let's just go to our auth form, and here the first thing is we have to bind this input field with our state, right? Because we need to get the values of whatever we are typing over here in our email field and the password field, right? So that is the first thing that we have to do. And then we click on the sign up. We can like so yeah, let's do that. So first thing we are going to do is we are going to bring our useState hook, right? And as the name suggests, a useState hook is used to like create our local state. Okay, so useState, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create like two state. The first one would be email, and we also need to set email equals to use state, right? And by default I want it to be an empty string. Okay, and const, and the next thing you might have guessed by now would be password and set password. So set password is basically a function that's going to change the password value. So set password, and I'm going to set that to use state, and for the initial value I'm also going to give it a value of an empty string, right? And let's just bind these values inside our input field. I think there are lots of attributes field over here, so let's modify this a little bit by placing these attributes on different lines. There you go. All right, that looks much better. And now here I want to add a value of, now since this is the email input, we are going to add this email value right here, email. And another thing that I want to do here is I want to add an onChange handler. Okay, now onChange is basically our event handlers. So basically if there is any change in this input field, this event is going to get fired up, yeah, which is going to call a function of, let's just say, handle change. And let's create this function over here. So let's say const handle change is equals to, and here it's going to accept a parameter of event. So event, because we are initializing this function in our event handler, we get an event object as well in this parameter. So like you can console log current right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check first if this function is actually working. So let's just console log, not log event dot target dot let's just add a type here. Let's see if this works or not. Let's just go over here, let's inspect this page, let's open the console section, and let's add something here. And there you go, guys. Every time we are trying to like click a key in the keyboard, you can see you are getting this type of the event, which is email, because this is an email input, right? So we're getting email over here. And the reason why you're not being able to see any like change in the type of in the email field over here is because we haven't like completed the binding, and that's why you're not being able to see. So here we are going to check the type of the event. So if events type is email, we are going to change the email field. If the events type is password, we are going to change the password field. Okay, so I'm going to check if like if event dot target dot type is equals to email. I'm going to set the email to event dot target dot value, because that is basically the value of because that is basically whatever value that we have added. Let's just save this if this works or not. So if I save this, and now you can see that whatever value that I'm adding, it's being like added on the email field. So this is basically working. And for the next case, we have to check if its type is password. So else if event dot target dot value target dot type equals to password, because this time it will be a password. Let me just add a set password to event dot target dot value. Okay, and like let's just check and see if this works. Let me go to our password field as well. Let's just format this input field first. So, and here in our value I'm going to add value, I'm going to say password, right? And on the on change we are going to add handle change, right? So let's just see if it works for the password field as well. So if I go to our so the password field is also working, but I'm getting this error that says a component is changing an uncontrolled input to be controlled. So on refreshing, the like warning was gone. I guess the reason why it showed that is because like while like creating like this handle change, I think it might have got a value of undefined, and that's the reason why it was showing that warning. But currently like it's gone, so I don't think like there's no warning currently. So yeah, I think we are good to go. Let me quickly add an event handler in our submit form as well. So here what I'm going to do is first I'm going to like format the code. I genuinely like to use this formatting when I have lots of attributes just like this, right? So enough of the talk. Let's create an event handler in this input field as well. And remember, this input field is basically our button, this button right here. So we are going to add an event handler here of on submit. I think on submit works on the form tag, because in the button tag I think on click works on the button. So let's just remove this and let me go to our form tag, and here let's create an event handler of on submit. Okay, and here let me add a event handler of handle submit. Also remember, do not pass the function brackets over here. You do not require it, otherwise you will end up in an infinite loop maybe. So yeah, so on submitting the form we are like calling our handle submit function. So let's just create our handle submit function as well. So handle submit, yeah, so const handle submit is equals to, and we get an event object here because we are passing this function in our event handler. So that's why we always get our event object. And since this is an on submit event that is being passed from the form, its default behavior would be to refresh the page. So we need to like control that default behavior by saying event dot prevent default, right? And let's just save this, and below this let me add a console.log of form submitted, right? And I misspelled it. Okay, let's just save this and see if this works or not. In our sign up, let me just click this sign up button, and okay, we're getting this validation error. So let's just add an email, proper email field at gmail.com. Yeah, I think we are good to go. Let's just click the sign up button now, and there you go guys, we're getting this form submitted. Okay, so which means that this function is working and we are console logging the form submitted. So that means that this event handler is also working. And let me show you one thing. If we had not written this event.prevent default, what happens is that the default behavior of the form will takes place, right? And that default behavior is when you submit the form, it's going to refresh the page. So if I submit it here, there you go. It's refreshing the page. So we don't want to refresh the page, because what happens is that if you refresh the page, the local state gets reset, and we don't want that. Okay, so that is the reason why we are adding event.prevent default. And also, like in most of the cases, when you're using the form field, the form tag to submit the form, you are more likely to add this event.prevent default function. Okay, so yeah, we are being able to send the form. Let's just see if we can, like, we are getting the values as correctly if while sending the form. So instead of this console log form submitted, let's just console log email, and let me also console.log password. Okay, let's just save this, and let me set the email to john@gmail.com, and let's set the password to password 54321. I don't know whose password is that, but yeah, a dummy password. So let's just sign up and see if we get the values. And there you go, guys, we are getting the email as well as password. So now what we want to do is, instead of showing this email and password, we need to pass this, and we need to sign up the user with the help of Firebase. Okay, so now let's come back to Firebase again. I hope you still haven't forgotten the fact that we have initialized Firebase over here, and we are exporting this initialization. So now let's bring this app in our auth form.js file. So let's go back to our auth form, and here I'm going to import app, right? And we can import it directly because, like, we are using the export default. So, like, in order to sign in a user, we need two more things from Firebase. One would be the get auth function, and another one would be create user with email and password function. I just looked it up on the documentation, and from there I'm getting the information. So we need to import that. So let's import it right here. So we're going to import, first we are going to import the get auth function, and second we're going to import create user with email and password. And don't forget to add the capital letters over here. So create user with email and password, and we're going to import this from firebase /auth. Okay, so we need to import it from here. And in our handle submit, what we are going to do is we are going to create an auth object. So const auth is equals to get auth function, right? So now if you console log and see console.log and see what this auth has, you go to our browser, let's just hit the sign up, and you're getting this object right over here. Okay, so it basically has a lot of information. Even I don't know what this information is all about, but one thing I do know is that this is the object that you have to pass in order to use any authentication service. Okay, because I think the Firebase needs to know that you have initialized the app from your React project as well. So that's why I think, like, this object is required. Also, like, you need to pass this app object inside this get auth as well. So let me just pass this app object, and there you go. We now have created the auth object that we require in order to create use any authentication service. All right, so we have created our auth. Now what we need to do is, so now we can use this create user with email and password in order to sign up our user. So basically, whenever you sign up a user, you are basically creating the account for that user in your application. Okay, so that's basically what sign up is. So here we are going to write create user with email and password. And the first thing that I'm going to add here is our auth object that we have created. The second thing that I'm going to add here is email value. And remember, we are getting the email value, right? And the third one, we are going to add a password. All right, and one thing I need to know is that there are multiple ways in Firebase in order to like sign up a user. You can sign up using Facebook, you can sign up using Google, you can sign up using like many other things, but you can also like sign up using email and password, and that is the like the sign up method that we are using currently. Okay, so now what this function will do is it will create an account for the user, and it will also return a promise which we can catch with the help of then, and inside this then it will expect a function which takes in the user, and here we can basically console.log user. Okay, and if there is any error during the process, we need to catch that error as well. So I'm going to say dot catch, right, and then, and here it will also expect a function. So we are going to console log the error here, and the error we can get from here because this function will get our error, and then we can console dot log error. Okay, I think this is the code that we require in order to sign up user. So let me explain it to you from the first. First, we like initialize our Firebase and we are exporting our app, right? And if I save this, I hope this should work. So let me go to the Firebase, and let's just open up this Firebase right here. Let's go to our console. And let me go to bookworm because that is the project we had created, and inside this bookworm I have one app, right? Let's go to our authentication, and currently there are no users here, which is okay because we haven't like added any users over here. So if you go to our bookworm project, let me give a valid email here. Let's say john@gmail.com at over here, and let me also add a password of 123456. Okay, so now let's sign up the user, and like if I click on this button, like we should be able to create our user in the Firebase authentication, like meaning we should be able to sign up our users. So let's just click and see what it happens. So now if I click on this button, okay, we're getting a Firebase error. Error auth operation not allowed. So, and I think I know the reason why we're getting this error. So if you go to our, because I think we haven't like from our Firebase admin, I think we haven't like enabled the email authentication. So let's go to our Firebase and let's click on this sign in method inside our authentication. Currently we are using this email password authentication, so let's go over there. We haven't enabled it, so that's why it's not working. So let's just enable and let's just save this. So now I think we can get we can sign up the user. So let me click this once again, and there you go guys, we are getting the user data. And here if you like refresh the page, you can see you're getting john@gmail.com with a unique user ID. And there you go guys, we have just created our first user with the help of Firebase. There was nothing wrong with the code. Only thing we had to do was like allow the email and the password authentication from the Firebase panel, and now it's going to work. Let's like expand this user property, because this user property is basically our user data that we have just currently created. So one thing we need to see is that it has a unique ID. So this ID is going to be unique for this user, and whenever we are like signing up another user, their UID is also going to be like different. Okay, and this unique ID is very important because later on when we like move on to the cart section and like start adding products to our cart, like we need this ID of a particular user while like saving the product data. Okay, we are being able to sign up the user with our Firebase, but currently I also want to set the username for the signed up users. So let's just create another like input field in our sign up that is going to handle our username. So if we go to our auth now I know this code is getting a little bit longer, but I think we should be able to handle this. So here, just like right above our email field, what we can do is we can copy this div. So let's just copy it, right? And let's just paste it over here. And instead of this email, let's just say username, and let's set the type to text. Like the form input is okay, and enter your username. Okay, and autocomplete should be off. You know what, let's just remove this autocomplete. I don't know where we got it. Yeah, and I think the value should be username, and just above here. Now here we can like we need to set its state as well. So const username and set username to, let's say, useState, and by default I just want to add an empty string over here. Let's just save that. And for the handle change, I think I'm just getting a feel that this might not be a good way to handle the of the input field. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove this function, like done, right? And let's go below this on change, and inside this curly braces, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an arrow function right here. Okay, and here I'm going to pass the event, like it's the same thing. And here I'm directly going to like set the email, password, and username. So I'm going to in our username, in case of our username, I'm going to set the username to event dot target dot value. In our handle change, let's remove this. Let's add our function. Remember to add an arrow function, and here it will take the parameter of event because we are calling this function on the on change effect. So we will get this event value, and here we are going to set the email this time to event dot target dot value. And finally we are going to set the password as well. So let's create the arrow function over here, arrow function, and set the event over here, and let's just set password to event dot target dot value. Let's just save this, and let's see how this looks. All right, so we have our username right now. We have our email, and we have a password for the sign up. And I think we are also going to get the same thing for the login as well. But you know, we are going to remove this username like when we go to the login page, but we'll do that later on. But first we need to like work on the sign up. So now let me quickly inspect this. Let's open up the console, and first let's just check if these values are working, because I've just like refactored the code and like completely like removed the handle change function and just added uh, the handle change on each of these right here. So let's just check if these functions are working correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a comment to this entire code, and you can actually do that by selecting all this code and pressing Control and front slash, and this will actually like comment the entire code, right? So here in our handle submit, first things first, let's just you know what, let's just not uncomment this code because we want the prevent default, and let's console log all the values for now. just to check if these are working. So console.log, we're going to console log email, we're going to console.log password, and then we're going to console.log username. So username as well. Let's just save that. Now let's just see if these values are working. So for the username, I'm going to add John. For the email, I'm going to say john@gmail.com, and I've just added a hash. Let me just see. Yeah, there you go. And for the password, I'm just going to set it to 123456. Let's just hit the sign up button, and yeah, I think we are getting all the values as we have entered over here, so we are really good to go with this. Now instead of console logging, let's just remove this was just for checking purposes, and let's bring back our original code, which was signing up to our Firebase, right? So this function is already saving your email and password. What I want to do is I want to save the username as well. Okay, and that is the reason why we did all of this. So let's, instead of this user, let's change its name to user credentials, something like this, and add a user credentials. Okay, and let's just save this. I don't think we can sign up with the same email. Let's try this if it works or not. Yeah, we are getting this 400 error that says auth email already in use. So we can't use the same email again and again, because previously also, like, we used the same email in order to sign, yeah, this user. So we are going to say john1@gmail.com and sign up the user, and we are getting the user credentials object, right? And inside the user credential object, which is user credentials, we are getting this user object as well, and inside this user object we have our display name. So what I'm going to do is, instead of this console.log, I'm going to say user credentials dot user dot display name, and I'm going to set it to our username. All right, so once the user like gets signed up, once the user's data gets added to our Firebase database, and once the sign up is complete, I'm also going to set the user's display name with our username over here. And the user display name we're just getting from here, because when we sign up the user, Firebase actually returns us the user details, the entire thing, and from that we are fetching the display name and changing the display name to our username that we have added, that we have like typed it over in this input field. And let's see like if we are being able to like if the user display name is being set to our username. So after this code, what I'm going to do is I'm going to console.log, and I'm going to console log user credentials dot user, and just to check like if the display name is being changed or not. So let me go back to our browser, and let's just say john2.gmail.com, and let me like clear this console for now, and let's just hit the sign up button. Yeah, we are getting this object, and inside this, there you go guys, we are getting the display name of John this time instead of an empty value. This means that we are setting our display name to John. And if you go to our authentication right here, if you refresh the page, we are getting our like the users in our authentication database as well. Now the sign up functionality is done. The new users are being like registered in our Firebase application from our React application. So now what we need to do is we need to focus on the login page. But one thing I need to do here is, once the sign up is successful, I want to navigate the user to our home page. So in order to navigate once a certain condition is met, what we need to do is we need to go back to our React Router DOM and bring a hook called use navigate, and with the help of that hook we will be able to navigate between pages without being able to like navigate different pages. Okay, so what we're going to do is here we are going to import, like let me import it below React. So I'm going to import a hook called use navigate, right, and from React Router DOM, because the navigation and the routings, everything is done by React Router DOM. And I'm going to initialize this hook right over here. So let's just say const navigate is equals to use navigate, right? And now this navigate, now with the help of this navigate we'll be able to like navigate the users. So if I go over right here, instead of console log, what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate the user. Now this is basically a function, and inside this function we have to specify the path where we want to navigate the user to. So currently we want to currently after the user has signed up, we want the user to navigate to the home page. So I'm just going to add a slash here, which is basically our root route. Okay, and the root route basically returns the home page. So that's why I'm going to add a slash over here. Let's just save that, and now let's try this up and see if this works or not. So let me refresh the page for now. Let's add a username of John again. I keep doing John, and let's add an email of john21 at gmail.com. Remember to add a different email because we have already added a few emails of John here. So it won't work if your email is same, or like you can delete this as well, but I'm just going to keep it for now. And for the password I'm going to add 123456. Okay, let's just sign up and see if we are getting like redirected to our home page. So let's sign up, and there you go guys, we are being able to navigate to our home page, which means that the sign up is working, and currently we are logged in as well. Because once the sign up is successful, you are already logged into the application. Okay, because you have the user credentials, you have the signed up authenticated user data that you can fetch anytime, unless and until you log out. So once you like sign up the user, you are automatically logged into our app, to the application. Let's close this tab for now and go to our let's first close everything up, because like we are done with our sign up for now, because it's working fine, it's being successful. So let's just remove everything, and let me open up our navbar. So if I go to components, and inside layouts we have the navbar and navbar.js. And the reason why I brought the navbar component back is because since we are authenticated, I don't want to show the login or the sign up links. Okay, instead I want to show the cart link. We're going to remove this login and sign up links and like add a logout link. Maybe when we are not authenticated to our application, we need to show this login and sign up back. Okay, so how do we get the authenticated user data? You might be wondering that, right? So Firebase also gives us a special function. With the help of that, we can get the authenticated user data. Just like the create email and just like the create user with email and password, Firebase does provide us with a a special function, and with the help of that, we can like get the user data if the user is authenticated. So but I actually kind of forgot that forgot the name of that function and how it works. So let me quickly go over to the Firebase documentation. So Firebase docs, and let's click on this Firebase documentation first, and here you'll find a lot of things, but currently what we want to focus on is the authentication over here. Let's just click on that, and from here, from the left hand side, let me click on web, and inside that let's just go to password authentication, because I think that is what we're doing right now. And here I think we should get, or like we should go to manage users. I think that's where we'll find our function. Yeah, I think this is the one. So on auth state changed is a function that we get from the Firebase auth. Basically what this on auth state change does is that it kind of checks if the user is signed in. Like if the user is signed in, then it returns the user as an object. Otherwise, I think it returns a false value if the user is not signed in. So like in our application, let's check if the user is signed in or not. So one question would be like, where should we check if the user is signed in or not? And the best answer for that is we should always check that in the topmost component. Because if you're logging out or like logging in or like doing any authentication change, like once the top level component knows that the state has been changed, then it can pass that information to its child components, and depending on that, the child components can render the UI. Okay, so currently the top level component would be our app component. So let's just go to our app component right here, and I think we can check if the user is authenticated or not right here. So we need to do that inside the use effect. So let's just go over here and create our use effect, bring our use effect. So use effect, right? Okay, and here let me just type use effect, and it'll expect a function, and here we can give an empty dependency array for now. And as we saw earlier, like we need on auth state changed function from firebase.auth. So let's just import that. So let's import, you know what, let me import it below the React router DOM. So import, first thing I'm going to import is the app, like app from the Firebase, right? Secondly, I want to import the get auth, because we need this as well. To use any authentication service, we need to like initialize the get auth, and I think we can import on auth state changed, right? And let's set the change to capital C, and we import this from Firebase slash auth. Okay, let's just yeah, I think this should work. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set our auth object. So here I'm going to say const auth is equals to get auth, and inside this get auth I'm going to add the app object over here. And here inside our use effect, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the on auth state changed function, and inside it will take our auth object first, and then it will give us a callback function, and inside this callback function we get the user, right? Yeah, we get the user, and if the user is authenticated, it's going to give us the object whose value we can actually see. And if the user is not authenticated, then it's going to return false. So here I'm going to console.log first, console.log, and let's see what we're getting in the user here. Let's go to our home page. Let's open this inspect, and let's see, we are getting this user object right here. Let's open this up, and there you go guys, we are getting the user data. So now let's just add a condition over here that says if we have a user, then we are going to currently console dot log user, and if we don't have a user, then we are just going to, you know what, we're not going to do anything. If the user is not there, like it's not there, but if the user is there, we're gonna console log user. So let's just save this for now. Let's go back to our browser. So yeah, we are getting our user object, and this means that currently the user is authenticated. Okay, so one thing here is that we are getting this warning that says each child in a list should have a unique key prop. And I think somewhere we have we have not like added a key wherever we are looping through a particular data in order to show a particular component. And here it says that check the render method of product listing, right? So that means there is something wrong in the product listing like component. So I think we should go over there, product listing and product listing all. Okay, so let me go to pages. Let's go to books page. Okay, so we have product listing all here. So I think we should go inside the layouts folder. So I think inside the components, layouts, yeah, we have the product listing and the product listing all here. So if I go inside product listing.js, and as you can see, we are looping through the book data here and like returning product listing card for each book, right? But one thing we have not done here is like we have not added a key prop here, because if you don't add that key prop, we are going to get this warning. Like it's not going to give us an error, everything's going to work fine, but it's just going to give this warning. So I don't want this warning to come up, right? So that's why I'm going to add a key here, key, and I want to set this value to book.id. And if you save this, I've already saved that, and if you go back to my browser and let's refresh and see how it looks. Okay, so I think the errors are gone. Let me go to books. Okay, so now you can see that warning is still coming in terms of product listing all, but currently we just resolved it for the product listing component and not the product listing all. So if you can go here, like we did it for the product listing, okay, like we did not do it for the product listing all. So let's do that for the product listing all as well. Yeah, so here instead of like, I'm going to add a key and set that value to book dot id. Let's save that, and if I see it here, let's just refresh the page. Okay, I'm still getting that error. Let's go back to product listing all. Let's see where I went wrong. Okay, so I think and the reason why it's giving me that error is because I have to add the key not on the child component but like the parent, so which is here. And now you can see that you are not getting any warning. Okay, so basically you have to add a key with a value of a unique id, and if you have not created id, you have to create an id, or you can also use the index, but I don't prefer using the index. So now what I want to do is, now since our user is currently logged in, right, after signing up, what I want to do is when the user is logged in, I don't want to show this login and sign up links, right? Instead, what I want to show is a logout link and probably a cart link. Now, if you kind of think about this functionality, right, our login and sign up links, they are not in the root component, like they are inside our header component. And but this data right here, this data of the user, that is inside our app.js component. So in order for these links to know whether the user has signed in or not, we have to send this data, the user data, from the app.js to the header component. And we can pretty much do that by passing it somewhere over inside the home page, right? And from that home page, I can pass it to the showcase, and inside the showcase, I can like pass it inside this navbar, and finally on the navbar, I think we can like get that user data over here and then check whether that user data exists or not, and like show this login and sign up depending on that value. But if you kind of logically think about it, what we're doing is we are passing those values through multiple components and finally towards our navbar. And this method is basically called prop drilling, basically passing the prop from parent component to child component. But if you look closely, we are passing that data to these two components as well. That does not even require it, right? It's just our navbar component that needs the user data and not these two components. So passing the data from the parent to the child component is not a good way to like solve this issue. And also, not only the navbar, many other child components might need our user data, right? So let's say our cart component, or maybe our billing section, because we want to get the username. There could be many other subcomponents that would be requiring this user data that is inside, that is on the top level parent component. So passing down to each of those components as a prop is not a good way of resolving this issue. So one way of solving this problem would be to use context API. I know like you can use a state management library for that, right? But I don't want to over engineer this project and with complexities. So now basically context API, what it does is like it helps us to pass down the data from the parent component, let's say from app.js, to the child component, which is navbar.js, without having to pass to these components that doesn't even require it. So in order to use the context API, what we have to do is we have to import something, okay, from React, which is create context, okay. And create context, basically what it does is it helps us to create context, as the name itself suggests, right? And let's create our context first. Also, one thing to notice here is that you don't have to create the context inside the component, you can just create outside of it. So const, and the name of the context should be user context, because we are going to pass the user data through this context. And now I'm going to use the create context that we have imported from React. So create context, and inside of it I'm going to pass a default variable, or like a default value of an object, of an empty object. With this code, what we're doing is we are creating a simple context. I'll tell you what context is later on, but first you just have to know that we are creating a simple context and we have named it the user context. And the reason why I named user context is because this context is basically for the authenticated user, and we have used create context in order to create that context, and the default value that we are setting it is an empty object. We can also like check that out. So here I'm going to console log and see like what this user context has. Okay, so console dot log user context. Let's just save that and let's go back to our browser, and here you can see that this is basically what the user context is logging out. So basically context is an object, and that has a lot of properties, but there are like two of the main properties that we really need to understand in terms of context API. That is, it has a provider and a consumer component. Okay, so it has a provider component as its property and a consumer component as its property. And the provider helps us to send the data from one component, and with the help of consumer we can get the data in maybe like the child component, right? So let me show you how this is done. So if you go back to our code, we have the user context, and as I said, with the help of provider component, what we're going to do is provider component, and as I said earlier, provider component helps us to send the data, like helps us to send the data. So instead of this div, I'm going to write user context dot provider, and we're going to close the tag with user context dot provider. And provider is, as I said earlier, it's basically a component that exists as a property of this context. Okay, and this context we have already created over here, so we can use that. Now what this code means is that once you enclose anything inside this provider component, right, all of these components will be able to access the data that you have sent from the provider component. Okay, so that means the home page, the books page, the book details page, the sign up page, and the login page, all of and their like child components, all of them will be able to like fetch or receive the data that the provider is going to send. Now the next thing what I want to do is I want to actually create the data first. So basically our main motive is to send the user data to the navbar, right? So first let's create a state for that. So in order to create a state, we are going to use a hook, which is use state, and let's create the state here. So I'm going to say const, and I'm going to say authenticated user, right? And set authenticated user equals use state, and for the default value I'm going to set it to null. All right, so basically use state returns two things. One is the actual value, and another one is basically kind of like a function that changes the value of the state, because state cannot be changed directly, so we have a special function that is going to change the state. So we have created this state, which is authenticated user. Now here, as we have already like created the condition, if the authenticated user is present or not, right? So if the authenticated user is present, instead of console logging the user, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set our authenticated user to user. And if like there is no user, so else what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the authenticated user to null. Okay, so if there is user, we are going to set its value to user, otherwise we are going to set its value to null. Now that the data is set, so what we need to do is we need to send the data from the provider. So in order to send the data from the provider, all we have to do is set the data prop and set it to whatever value that you want to send. Currently I want the value of currently I want to send the authenticated user, so I'm going to send that. So I'm going to say authenticated user. Okay, and that's everything that we have to do in terms of the provider. Okay, so now all of these components, right, the home page, book page, book details page, sign up, and the login, so they along with their child components will be able to fetch this authenticated user data. All right, so let's do that now. So let's go to our navbar.js, because that's where we want to like have the authenticated user value. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a special hook again, right? And that hook is going to be use context. All right, and with the help of this use context, what we can do is we can actually fetch the data that the context provides with the help of provider, given that you have passed the data here. Now since we have already passed the data, which is authenticated user, we can get the data with the help of use context. And remember, like although we don't have a navbar component here, but we do have this home page component, the books page component, and all of them, if you go over through them, it will have like child components that is going to have the navbar. So here below the component declaration, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a value that's going to be const, and I'm going to name it user is equals to use context, right? And inside of this use context, what we need to do is we need to add the context that we want to get the data from. Now the context that we want to get the data from is our user context, right? Because this context basically has our user data. So what we're going to do is we are going to export this user context from here, and whenever you export this user content, like you can import it anywhere. So import, and whenever you export it like this, export const, you have to import it inside these curly braces, right? It's only when you export default, only then you can like omit these curly braces, otherwise you have to add it. So I'm going to import our user context. So here I'm going to say user, and you can see that the VS Code automatically gives it to us. So let's enter. Let's bring this user context right over here so that we can actually get the data and set it to user. And by data I mean whatever that we have sent it over here, which is our authenticated user. Okay, let's just save that, and finally let's just console.log user, right? And let's see whether we are getting an actual data or not. So let me remove this user for now. Yeah, I think that's good. Let's just save this. Let's just save this as well, and I think we will be able to get it. We are not being able to get it. It's giving me undefined, and here it's saying the value prop. Oh, I think I know where I made the mistake. Here it's saying the value prop is required for the context.provider. So if you go to our context.provider, I have given a data prop here. I'm really sorry guys, instead of this data it should be value. Okay, and here now you're getting this data over here, and if you kind of look at it, the first time you are getting a null, and the second time we are getting this data over here. And the reason why we're getting null is because by default we have set its value, authenticated user value, to null. So when the component first are like renders, this like use effect hook takes place, and here it's going to check whether the user is authenticated or not. In our case, the user is currently authenticated, so now we are going to set the authenticated user to user value, and then since the state is changed, the component is again going to re-render, and the second time instead of null we are going to get the user value, which is this value right here. All right, and as you can see, we are getting this value in our navbar.js, which means that we have successfully been able to pass the value from the app component to the navbar component without being able to pass it like directly through these intermediate components. All right, and we are doing that with the help of context API. Now if this looks a little bit confusing to you guys, that's really okay. You don't have to understand it completely. Even when I first started with context API, I was very like confused about it, of how it was like taking place. But if you keep practicing and if you keep using it in your projects, things will start to get easier for you. So now basically we are being able to fetch the user. What we need to do is, depending on the value of this user, we have to change our UI, which means that we have to either show login on sign up, or we have to show the logout and the cart section. So here what I'm going to do is, instead of this entire nav section, I'm going to like cut it for now, and here I'm going to make a conditional statement with a ternary operator by saying user question mark. If the user is present, we are going to show logout and cart, right? Else we are going to show log in and sign up, something like this. So basically what we're saying is, like, if the user exists, if the authenticated user is there, we are going to show the logout screen, the logout link and the cart link. If the user is not authenticated, we are going to show the login and the sign up. So we're going to create this show logout and cart and show login and sign up, and these are basically variables. Okay, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say const, and I'm going to create a name, variable name of show login and, okay, let's start with login and sign up, right? And I'm going to say equals, and instead of adding any variable, let's just add a square brackets, and inside this square brackets I'm going to paste what I had cut earlier, which is this section right here. Okay, and you can basically do this, like, this code is legit. Okay, what we are doing with this code is, this variable is returning this entire block of code, and the way we return it is with the help of these square brackets. we can do the same thing for the logout and the cart section. So const logout, logout and cart, and here also we are going to do the same thing. We're going to paste that, but instead of login and sign up, I'm currently just going to add a logout link. Okay, yeah, currently don't worry about this, let's just set it to home page for now. Yeah, let's just save that and let's see if this works or not. So if you go back to our code, and there you can see, guys, since we are currently logged in, we are not being able to see the login and sign up. Instead, we are seeing this logout link. Okay, so long story short, what we did was we checked whether the user exists or not, and based on that we either showed show logout and cart, which basically returns this section, and if the user is not present, then we are like calling show login and sign up, which is basically returning this block of code. Okay, so we are being able to show the logout and the login and sign up respectively, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a small cart section over here as well. So for that, let me go to icon finder again. So iconfinder.com, and I'm going to search for cart. Yeah, I think I should go with this one. This looks better. So let's just download this in SVG. So download in SVG, right? Let's open this up in our folder. Let me copy this. Let's go to desktop, book ecommerce, source. I'll just go to your folder. Just go to your like project folder, and inside assets, let's just copy paste that SVG and change the name to cart. Okay, and let's go back to our code. Now if you look in our assets folder, you will see the cart.svg. So let's import that, and in React, in order to import svg, we have to import it like this. We have to say import react component as cart from, and we need to specify its location. So let's go back inside assets, and inside assets I think we have our cart.svg. So if you say cart.svg, we'll be able to map that file. So we are importing this svg by the name of cart, and we are importing as react component. Okay, so this is basically how you import an svg, and now you can use, with the help of this cart, you can like actually use this svg in the form of component. Okay, so let's just save that, and let's bring this cart over here. Now instead of this link, I want to use a, let's see if I can work this with a div tag, or like let's use an anchor tag. So anchor tag, and inside this anchor tag I'm going to add oops, I just added the name. I'm going to add the cart. So, and we are going to add it as a component because we are using that react we are using the svg in the form of react component. So we can like declare this cart svg like this. Yeah, so let's just save that and see if this works or not. So if you go back to our browser, there you go, guys, we are being able to get this cart svg in our browser, but currently you can see that this is way big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some styles and style it up. So in order to style this svg, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our code, and we're going to select this cart.svg. Now svgs are basically code itself, and you can like style it from here. So in terms of our styling, what I want to achieve is I want to add a like a white color for this cart, and I want to like shorten, like decrease its width, because currently it's way big. So in order to do that, we have to create an attribute of fill and set it to hashtag FFF. Let's just save that, and you're going to see that the color is going to get changed. So with the help of this fill attribute, whatever color that you add inside of it, the SVG will respond to that color and change its color. And for the width, I'm going to set the width attribute, and I'm going to give it like 30 pixels, something like that. Let's just see how it looks. Okay, that looks better. And currently, like, they are not aligned with each other. So in order to do that, let's go back to our code and let's see what's the problem. So yeah, as long as like this cart section, cart SVG is concerned, like we are done with it. I just wanted to have a fill of white and like width of 30 pixels. So let's style, I think we need to style our navlinks container. So let's go to our navbar.styles.css and let's see, navlinks container. I think we haven't styled that, so let's call this up here. So nav links container, right? And let's style this navlinks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a display property of flex, and then I'm going to set the align items to center. Okay, and not center, yeah, center. So what that will do is there you go, like you can see that our cart icon is centered with the links, which is what you want. And finally, let's also give some padding towards the left. So let's add a class name in our anchor tag saying cart link. Let's save that, and in our navbar styles.css, let's style that up. So dot cart links or cart link, yeah, cart link. Let's set its display property to inline block, right? Because by default it's inline, so like paddings won't work. But now once you like display it, set the display property to inline block, the paddings will work. So let's just add the padding of padding left of 20 pixels for now. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Yeah, I think this should work. Also, like, let me open the cart SVG again and let's set the width to 25 and see how this looks. Okay, yeah, that looks much better. And let's also add a cursor property in our cart link and set it to pointer, so that every time when the user points towards it, yeah, the pointer should come up. And I think that is what we want, guys, in terms of this functionality over here. When you click on this cart, you'd want to go to the cart page. Yeah, let's just by default create a simple component. So in our pages, I think we can create our cart page now, right? So let's go over here and create a new folder that says cart page, and inside this cart page, let's just add a component for now that says cart page.js, right? And inside this, let's just create a simple component. Okay, so we have created this simple component that just renders this cart page text as a header. So let me go to our routes now, because we have to set up the route for this page as well. So in our app.js, right, let's create a route. Let's just copy this and paste it here, and in our path we are just going to say cart, and in case instead of this books page in our element, we are going to add cart page. Now we haven't imported it inside this app.js, so we're going to do that now. So here below this books page, I'm going to import cart page. Okay, let's just save that. I don't think we'll get an error here. let's just go to our browser, and if I say cart over here, and let's just hit enter, as you can see we are being directed to our cart page. Now let me also add that functionality to the cart link. So let's go back to our navbar.js, and here, you know what guys, instead of this anchor tag we can actually use a link tag over here. So link, right, and we can set the to prop to cart. Let's just save that and see if this works. If you click over here, there you go guys, we are getting the cart page. So now since this we have created this cart icon, and like we are being able to route it to the cart page, now let's focus on this logout link right here. Okay, so when we click on this logout, what we want to do is we want to like log out the user. Okay, and in order to do that, let's go back to our Firebase documentation. Alright, so here in our documentation you can see how the sign out functionality has been applied. So let's go back to our code. We are going to import two things here inside our navbar. We are going to import get auth, right, and the second thing that we're going to import is sign out that you have right here. Okay, and we also need to import the app, the Firebase app that we had created. So let's just import that app from, I think we have a folder here called Firebase. Let's see, yeah, we do have that. Yeah, so let's just import it from dot slash from Firebase inside Firebase file, and we need to use this app to like initialize our auth. So let's do that. So let's say const auth is equal to get auth, and inside the brackets we are going to add the app. Okay, and this auth is used in order to do any authentication, in order to use any authentication service. So let's sign out the user when the user clicks on this logout link. So here now, instead of this link, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an anchor tag here, right? Anchor tag here. Let's just save that. Okay, here it's saying app is not found. I think that's because app is defaultly exported. Yeah, and we are importing inside of this curly braces. Let's just remove this curly braces. I think we are good to go. Let's just save that, and there you go, there's no error. Let's go back to our logout, and yeah, let's just see if our anchor tag works well. Okay, nothing wrong with it. And here let's just add an event handler that says on click. So basically when you click in this logout link, we are going to handle logout. So handle logout is basically a function. So let's build that function over here. So let's just say const handle logout is equal to, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign out the user with the help of this sign out right here. So I'm going to say sign out, right, and once the sign out is complete, then what we can do is we can actually do anything. We can like redirect the user to maybe like the home page. So yeah, let's do that. So in order to redirect our user to the home page, we are going to use the use navigate hook that comes from the React Router DOM. So here, along with this link, we are going to import use navigate, right? And let's initialize our navigate variable over here. So let's just say const navigate is equal to use navigate, right? And so our navigation is initialized, and now with the help of this navigate we can actually redirect our user. So let's just go over here and say navigate the user to our home page. Okay, and basically the route of the home page is our slash, the root route. So yeah, this should actually once you like log out, you should be able to redirect to the home page. In the process of signing out, if there is any error, we are going to catch that error and we are going to log it out. So console.log error. Okay, so this is how we are handling the logout. We are importing two things, the get auth and the sign out function from the Firebase auth. Now these are built-in functions, right, that we get from the Firebase. We are also importing the app that we have initialized, the Firebase app that we have initialized, and we are basically first of all like initializing our auth, because as I said earlier, you need this value in order to make any authentication services with the Firebase. And in our logout link, what we did was we just added an on click event, so that when you click on this logout, we are going to call this function handle logout. And handle logout function, what it does, it basically calls the sign out function, and the sign out function like logs the user out of the authentication flow. And once that happens, we are going to navigate to our root home page, right? And in the process, if there is any error, we are going to catch that error right over here. Okay, so let's just save that, and I think that should work. Let's go back to our project and let's go to like books section, just to like feel the redirection, because from the home, like if you are redirected to home, then like you won't see any difference, but from the books, like you will get the difference. So here, from here, we're just going to click the logout link right here, and okay, nothing is happening. I think we made a mistake somewhere. Okay, it says cannot read properties of undefined reading sign out. So I think I did one thing wrong. I need to add this auth over here. Let's just save that. Let's just go back and see if this works. Right, so if I log out from here, as you can see guys, we are being able to log out of the system. Okay, and because like we are getting this login and sign up, which means like currently the user is set to null, and that only happens when the authenticated user has logged out of the authentication flow. So yeah, we are being able to log out from our application. Now again, we are being able to see the login and the sign up page, right? And so let's just sign up again with another username, 123456. Let's just sign up this user, and there you go guys. Now we are signed up, and you can see we have the card section and the logout section. And again, like let me also like add a slight cursor pointer. So yeah, in our nav links dark or nav links, I think we should add a cursor pointer over here. Let's add a cursor pointer. Let's just save that. And I think like now, yeah, we are getting the pointer on hovering on the Evli link. And if I click on this logout now, we are being able to log out. Okay, and that's really cool. Okay, so this functionality is done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the login functionality as well, because I think currently we don't have that functionality. So let's go back to our code, and I think we should go to the login page, login.js, and I think the auth form is there. So if you go to our components, auth form, Okay, so I think we have used the same component for both the login and the sign up, but it seems like when we are submitting the form, we are calling handle submit, but that is actually signing up the user and not logging in the user. So here what we have to do is we have to actually create a condition that if we are in a login page, then we need to log in the user, and if we are in the sign up page, we need to sign up the user. So the way we can do that is with the help of this button name, because as you can see in our login page and the sign up page, we have passed the button name as login in our login page, and in our sign up page we have passed the button name as sign up, and we are going to use these properties in order to create the condition over here. So what I'm going to do is here I'm going to say if, and then I'm going to say button name is equals to login, right? Let's see, let's go to login.js. Yeah, login. Then what we are going to do is we are going to log in the user, else we are going to sign up the user. So the signing up function is over here. So let me just add it inside this else block. I hope you are familiar with if and else blocks, right? And yeah, something like this. And inside here we are going to log in the user. So in order to log in the user, we need to call another special function that is sign in with email and password. I think it is over here. There you go, guys. So it's kind of like the same thing that we did with the sign up. Okay, so instead of this create user with email and password, I'm going to call sign in with email and password, and inside it I'm going to give it the auth value, and we have already created this auth value, so we don't need to create it again and again. I'm going to set the email value, and I'm also going to set the password value. And this is what is amazing about components, is that you don't have to create things again and again. Okay, so we created the auth form for the sign up page, and for the login page we just have to add some logic over here, and we don't have to create it everything from scratch. So that is one beauty of using components. And once the sign in is complete, what I'm going to do is I'm going to redirect the user to the home page. Okay, so once the sign in is complete, it's going to return a promise which we can catch from then. And what we're going to do is we are going to call a function that is going to redirect the user to our home page. So we need to use the use navigate here as well. So I think I have already used it over here. Cool. So I'm going to add that navigate and route the user to our home page. And finally, if there is any errors in between, we can catch that error, and let's just console log that error. Yeah, so I think that should do it for the login as well. So let's just check and see if this works or not. Okay, and I think in case of this login, we don't want to have this username field, because the username field is only for the sign up page. So what I'm going to do is, yeah, I'm going to cut this code, Control X, and I'm going to create a condition over here. And that condition is basically if the button name is set to sign up, then only we are going to show our username fields. So in order to do that, let's create our curly braces, because we are going to use JavaScript over here, and we're going to say if the button name is equals to sign in, or sign up. I think it's sign up. So if you go to our sign up page, signup.js. Yeah, I think it's sign up with a space in between. So this is true. Yeah, we have added a sign up with the space in between. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 ampersand, and then I'm going to create a opening and closing braces, and here I'm going to paste that code right here. Okay, so what this code says is that if the button name is like sign up, then return this code. Okay, so it doesn't work if the button name is not sign up, it only works if the button name is sign up. So it is another way of kind of creating a conditional over here. So if our button name is sign up, then only we'll be like returning this section, that is the form group that has this username input. Otherwise we are not going to return this section, which means that this section is going to be seen only in the sign up page and not on the login page. So if we save this code and if we go back to our browser, you can see that you're not being able to see the username field over here, but as soon as you go to sign up, you'll be able to see the username field right here. Okay, so let's go back to our login, and now let's just set like type our email, and I think we had created, yeah, we have mark@gmail.com, so let's just go with that. So in our email, let's just add mark@gmail.com, and let's add a password of 123456 because I think that is the password that we had given. Let's log in and see if this works or not. And now you can see, guys, we are being directed to our home page, and you can see here the logout and the cart section, which means that we are now currently logged in as a user. If you go to our console, I don't think we'll be able to see the username because we haven't like a console logged that, but I think we are logged in we are logged in our application, because you can see the logout and the card icon over here, which means that this is working, guys. So if I go to logout, you can see that the logout functionality is over there. Again, if I go to login, and let's try with john@gmail.com. So john@gmail.com, and let's add a password of 123456. Let's just log in, and you can see that John is logged in as well. And so like the authentication is done actually. So we are being able to log in, we are being able to sign up. The only thing that I would want is to have a validation, but like I don't want to have complex validations over here in this field because that would take a lot of time. So I'm just going to add the validation that HTML5 provides. So in order to do that, let's just go back to our code, and in our input field, let's just add a attribute of required, and that should do the trick. So in all our input, let's just add required, yeah, and just leave the button as it is. If you save this and if you try to log in now with empty fields, you can see like the validation, the HTML5 is providing the validation by itself, so you don't have to add the JavaScript code. You can also do that like manually, but I don't want to do it right now because that would make the video longer than what I've been expecting. So I'll just leave that as it is. So now that we have completed the authentication flow, now we should start working on our cart page. Yeah, so let's start working on our cart page.